What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Troll Bro Dude, and if you didn't check the news today, there's some news going on in YKB world. I will be hosting a new NFL podcast, Eagles podcast called You Know Birds, formerly known as Bell and the Birdmen, which is hosted by my friends John Barchard and Vince Quinn. The link is in the description for that. If you have not already subscribed to their YouTube, sign up for their Discord, subscribe on Apple, Spotify. In the coming weeks, it will be changed. It will be rebranded to You Know Birds, and I will be hosting an Eagles podcast / NFL podcast once a week. So definitely check that out if you are not already subscribed. I see you want to say something smart ass. So
No. I totally. First of all, congratulations. I think that's amazing. And Eagles fans are really going to need this. They've had some of the most traumatic first 3 weeks of the season of any fan base. Almost losing 3 games. Wow, the traumas of being 3-0 are you guys are going to need to get together to cope a little.
Horrifying.
Yeah, so
exactly. I'm here to get us through these hard times where we don't lose a single game.
As a former Patriots fan, current ashamed Patriots fan, I know how traumatizing winning can be. So I just my thoughts and prayers are with you guys. So
it was like in the preseason. I don't know if you saw it, but there's this like famous Chiefs fan on Twitter who was like, "Oh, the Chiefs here to wreck my mental health until February." And then everyone was like, "You've won 2 of the last 4 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
You've been in 3 of them, and you've been in the AFC Championship game every single year."
Yeah. Like, shut up. Shut up. I mean, that said,
you're stealing valor from other fan bases like the Jets.
That said, I am going to be doing that exact same thing about the Celtics. But they haven't won a title. They haven't won 2 titles. Like, come on. So
once you win a title, like my level of bitching about the Eagles since they won in 2018 has just like, I went on the first episode, if anyone listens to it, I said in classic Philadelphia fashion, we're leading with what's going on with the passing game offense for the Eagles when they have literally trailed the entire season for 3 total minutes. In the first 3 games, they only trailed for 1 drive of the Vikings game. And other than that, they've been dominating. So if you want to hear me talk about a team that doesn't make me want to kill myself, go check out You Know Birds. Sign up for that. We're going to be having a bunch of You Know Ball guests on, and it will be a lot of fun to talk about the Eagles in the NFL throughout the entire season. So
notice Trill deployed this after the Eagles narrowly vanquished my Patriots because he was simply too scared of having me on to talk.
I was afraid of the power of Mac Jones. Let's be honest. All right, so let's pull up the pick'em for this week on Underdog Fantasy. Go on Underdog today. Sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Use the promo code SLOP. That's SLOP to get a $100 deposit match. Sam had a ticket hit last week of picks that was absolutely insane. Before Thursday Night Football was actually 20 to win 200. So if you heard that episode.
But by the way, I myself personally lost that ticket because I didn't have the featured Daniel Jones thing, and I took the chance Daniel Jones yards higher.
You took yards higher on Daniel Jones, and he had to get like 170, right? It was like 170 or 180, and he ended up with like 140 because he was playing the 49ers and they didn't have Saquon Barkley. But 4 of your picks hit.
You would listen to me on the pod. I'm really good at giving out the information. So here we go. Yeah.
So do you want to pick this one for Thursday Night Football, or if you actually go on Underdog, like I said, use the promo code SLOP to get a $100 deposit match today. They have some best ball resurrection, so you can draft another team since you might have lost some guys due to injury, or your team just kind of sucks in best ball for fantasy for the season. You can do that right now. You can also sign up for their NBA season-long best ball. I've done a few of those throughout the summer. They're a lot of fun as well. But Sam, are there any picks that you're feeling special about? We do have a special pick for Jared Goff here, but if you've already used a special pick, we'll try to avoid that so that we can get a legit hit for our listeners here that might have already used some sort of special pick. They might not have it available to them.
By the way, a promo on Underdog right now, though, you can get this. Jared Goff only needs 1 yard. So definitely take
higher.
That
if it's available to you, obviously, Jared Goff.
Yes, you definitely want to take that. So personally, I kind of like the Sam Laporta receptions. He's been
Yes, he's been hooping.
he's been hooping lately. He's been incredible. I kind of like Jordan Love. I kind of like his passing yards lower because I
Okay.
think his Linsanity run has come to an end. And then for the last one, do we have an Amon-Ra St. Brown one up there that I
We do
saw
have an
up above?
Amon-Ra St. Brown. Yes, I'll pull that
Yes.
back up.
Yeah.
Amon-Ra
And
St. Brown. It is 6.5 receptions, 74.5 receiving yards, 77.5 rushing and receiving.
I would sit 6.5 receptions higher. That seems like a lot, but he is the target king. So yeah,
Okay.
look at that. So those are my hot tickets for everyone.
All right, you throw $10 on that, you can get 60 on Underdog. If you include the Jared Goff pick, if you have it for free, you get that's 4 for 100. So you put $10 on that, you can win $100 on Underdog. And I actually did one because I was in New York for a wedding this past weekend, and I hit on 2 of my 3 picks. Unfortunately, the third pick did not hit, so I did not cash on the picks that I did for the NFL this past weekend, and it was largely because I can't even remember his name, but the Los Angeles Chargers running back did not go higher on his yards because they realized we have Justin Herbert and he could just pass wherever he wants on this Vikings defense. So he literally broke the record for like the most efficient high volume passing game in NFL history. So sadly, that happening derailed my ticket, but the other 2 did hit. And I'm looking forward when I'm not in a non-pick'em state to do some more of those throughout the season. So sign up for Underdog, promo code Slop, NFL, NBA, all that good jazz on there right now. But we need to get into the slop that has been happening around the NBA regarding Damian Lillard. Now, I know at some points people have gotten sick of the Damian Lillard talk, but including us, honestly, I think at one point we were like, we're not going to talk about the Dame thing until there's like real legit news. Well, there is real legit news because a lot has happened since we last talked about this. We talked about it during the Patreon section on Thursday. On Friday morning, we started hearing buzz. I heard from multiple different people. The big thing that kind of kicked all this off was the Suns getting involved with DeAndre Ayton potentially. Now, I have heard from like, I'm not even exaggerating, 4, maybe even 5 different people that seems like if the Suns are involved in this trade, a Nurkic for Ayton swap in some capacity, whether that includes players going to the Suns in addition to Nurkic, whether that includes some other moving pieces, I don't know. But that seems to be, I don't want to say it's a lock, but it seems highly probable that will happen if this trade involves the Phoenix Suns.
So something you've got to kind of understand when you're a secondhand slot purveyors like Trill and I, you hear a lot of stupid bullshit. Like there's a lot of like stuff like Trill and I don't talk about everything that we hear because a lot of it is quite frankly like not believable. Like we try to, vet like what's the most credible or what's worth like talking about. And we hear from all kinds of different sources. I heard from literally 9 different people that the Ayton Nurkic thing is done. And that is like essentially, which is like, you never have that level of consensus. Like there's always like some weird bullshit of someone trying to be like, ooh, like, who's involved is the Nuggets. Like, it's like, well, no, that's not fucking happening. Everyone says that Ayton for Nurkic is happening. And that's pretty funny because that is like one of the most, like if I saw a fan propose that trade, I would quote tweet it and like dunk on them viciously.
Yeah.
Like and say that there was like unreality issues with like the Blazers fan base. Like
they're experiencing a derealization.
They really are. They're decompensating like at a horrible rate. What Dame has done. If you have to listen to SoundCloud rap for too long, it melts your brain, and you end up
too many overdosing on struggle bars.
It's so funny because I want to shit on Miami Heat fans for not grappling with the fact that like Tyler Hero is a negative asset on his contract, but the fact that like Yusuf Nurkic is like one of, if not the worst contract in the NBA, and somehow might get traded for DeAndre Ayton, who is wildly overrated, but still at the end of the day, a solid NBA starter is wild to me. Like,
it's crazy.
So
and I mean, Will came up with the perfect comp last year when he called Ayton center Tobias, where he's always on the trade block. You know, he's not quite as good as his contract. Obviously, he's very overpaid. But at the end of the day, he is a guy who, if you were to rank out the best centers in the NBA, he'd probably be just outside, I don't know, the top 10, an above average starting center.
Mm-hmm.
On a complete overpay, obviously, but at one point was the number 1 overall pick. And we have seen the past 2 or 3 seasons, Yusuf Nurkic just completely fall off a cliff. Somehow he's like only 29 years old still.
That's kind of crazy.
It blew my mind.
He must have like come in the league like 21 or something like that.
He was
like, if that's his age now.
He was 19, I think, when he came into the league. Or 20. He was, because he was the 2014 draft. Oh no, what was the year Gary Harris was drafted? I think he was the same year as Jokic. He just turned 29. He turned 29 a month ago, so he was 28 not too long ago. And but like we said, over the last 2 seasons, has completely fell off a cliff. When he signed that contract a year ago, we were so confused because we were like, he has done nothing to warrant this because of, the injuries and the aging concerns. And then since then, in this past year, has only kind of doubled down on that in terms of what he can really bring to a team. And with DeAndre Ayton's overpay and flaws and the fact that he probably doesn't want to be in Phoenix because he's going to be the 4th offensive option, I guess if the Suns are getting something else, but the only thing I can think of is that they will get, originally I thought it was Miami being involved. When Gambo first floated this out here on Thursday, when we talked about it for a little bit, I thought it was going to be Caleb Martin going to the Suns along with Nurkic in order to bolster the Suns' wing rotation, give them someone who they can kind of start around their other guys. And then you take the downgrade from Ayton to Nurkic, but you can survive that because you're getting a playable wing that can play in the playoffs. Well, since then, I don't know, because it doesn't sound like Miami's involved in any of this. Like, it has gone from, for weeks, we just assumed, oh, Miami will be the team they get that eventually gets Dame. This is all just smoke. Eventually Cronin will give in, and apparently no. Like, I heard that morning that they did not contact Miami at all. They haven't talked to them since they reignited trade talks last week. And then later, multiple different sources confirmed this, including Woj and Miami people. And I said it in the Discord before Woj reported it, and I was like, I don't believe this. Like, I don't believe that they're not. And since then, all we've heard is Miami's not involved. So I don't know what the fuck Phoenix is thinking. And I don't know if Portland's just trying to drum up a market for Dame to then turn around and go to Miami and say, okay, make us a real offer, or we're actually going to take one of these deals. Because I mean, it seems more and more like that isn't going to happen.
That is like, well, it seems like kind of a chicken run, because now Miami's like kind of fighting back, because like that seems to be what Miami thinks is happening, and they're like, okay, we'll call your bluff. Fine, go ahead, trade Dame, see if we get. But I think that this is one of those things where like the game of chicken is going to end not well for like. Miami can't really do this. They actually do kind of need Dame. Like, if they want to, like, I'm sure that they could pivot into like a plan B for like Giannis or some of these other like big name stars, and they will be in the mix for them. Like, I don't want to like swell like that, but like you're talking about just like punting on 2 years of Jimmy Butler. Like, how's that going to go? Like,
that's what I was saying. Like, I've seen people say like, well, if they don't get Dame, they'll just be in on Giannis and Embiid. And I'm like, okay, but Giannis and Embiid aren't available yet and will not be made available during the season unless they demand a trade, which outside of one or two players over the past few years, that largely never happens during the season. Like James Harden and Kevin Durant are kind of the outliers when it comes to that. And if that's the case, then like you said, Jimmy Butler just turned 34. Like you're wasting the last few years you have of Jimmy Butler. And by the way, you're not getting Giannis or Embiid without giving up Bam Adebayo. The reason why the Damian Lillard trade seemed so perfect for them was because they would be able to pair Dame with those two without giving up one of them. If they trade for Giannis, there's no way the Bucks are doing it without getting Bam back. And then if you're waiting 2 years till Giannis is a free agent in order to sign him, then Jimmy will be 36.
It's not like, I don't know. Miami's got they seem to be playing some sort of 12D chess here, which, because that's the thing is, on the one hand, but because that's like the new news, and this is what we heard on Friday. You put this in, the Discord, that, that Toronto was sort of the one rising to the top as like the thing, and you and I were like, oh great, Masai, here we fucking go. And we heard all kinds of stories about Masai doing Masai things and a lot of silliness. And it seems like over the
center
weekend,
of attention, he's back.
But it's over the weekend, a lot of those stories we heard got confirmed and reported, which usually doesn't. So, it seems like for whatever reason, Toronto's interest is real enough that they're okay with it being reported. But just like the fact that Masai, because here's the thing that doesn't make sense to me, and I tweeted about this earlier this morning, is that if you're Toronto and you're escalating your timeline this fast, the other thing that all of the Toronto shills and everyone close to Toronto is saying is that, like, all these insane terms for how Scottie Barnes wasn't on the table, he wasn't in the same room, he wasn't in the same galaxy. Like, there's no way they would ever consider trading Scottie Barnes. I'm sorry, that makes so much more sense than trading either Pascal Siakam or OG Anunoby for Dame. That makes so much more sense. That timeline is ready to go. Scottie Barnes was not a good NBA player last year. Scottie Barnes wasn't like very good at all. He will probably be, pretty good. He will probably be a like fringe all-star type guy when he like comes along. The chances of him being a Pascal Siakam, Jaylen Brown caliber guy are not that high. Like, I'm sorry to Zach Lowe and his 10-time all-star thing. Like, guys who, guys can do this, but like the odds are now that Scottie Barnes is going to be a good, not great starter in his NBA career. And he's definitely going to keep being bad if you have him on a roster with two power forwards. OG and Pascal are good right now and makes sense with Damian Lillard. And I honestly, I swear I'm not being a hater. I really do think the Damian Lillard fit is better and would make for a better team in Toronto than it would in Miami if you get the Scottie Barnes. Because Toronto's thing is they just have no offensive firepower. They're just a defensive, shambling thing that cannot get a competent offense together. Dame is an automatic good offense. Like he's almost a walking top 10 offense. And you don't have to, you would still have rotation players if whatever the trade package is. You would have one of Gary Trent or OG Anunoby. You would have Jakob Poeltl, who's a good defensive center. You would have Pascal, who is a pretty high caliber type of guy, and you have Masai, who was pretty good at filling in the cracks last time around when they made Nolan trade. So I don't know. I think it's real enough. The fact that Scottie Barnes supposedly isn't in the deal makes me think that this is not a real thing, because then it just makes no sense for Toronto to trade.
Yeah.
Unless it's just for OG, in which case that's, I don't know.
Well, okay. So let's talk about if Scottie Barnes isn't on the table. What does Toronto look like if they trade for Dame using OG as the main guy or whatever? Like, let's just say it's OG, Ayton, but hold on. This is this is I'm getting to a point here.
Okay.
That core four that you would have in Toronto is Damian Lillard, who, like you said, top 10 offense to himself, all NBA level guard, amazing 3-point shooter. He does have defensive concerns, but the point of trading him to Toronto is that you could cover up some of those issues. If you keep Scottie Barnes, he's a much worse defender than OG Anunoby, one of the most overrated defenders in the NBA, Scottie Barnes. OG, meanwhile, is a legit all-defense level guy. And you would then have 2 all-defense level wings in Siakam and OG, plus a great rim-protecting and rebounding center in Jakob Poeltl if you decided to trade Scottie Barnes instead. If you keep Scottie, you have a guy who also has point-of-attack defensive issues, in addition to Damian Lillard. You also, on the offensive end, now are putting another non-spacer along with Siakam, who has been, known to be shaky up and down as a shooter throughout his career. No one would consider him a floor spacer, even if he's a willing 3-point shooter. He's a below-average 3-point shooter. And then on top of that, Jakob Poeltl, who doesn't shoot threes literally at all. The only way that he spaces is because the fact that he is a willing pick-and-roll partner. So if that's the case, wouldn't you rather trade Scottie Barnes as the main piece as opposed to OG Anunoby? Because then OG is still there to provide that elite wing defense, the switchability, all the things that OG can provide on that end. And then in addition to that, you also have another guy who is a legit NBA 3-point shooter. Like, he's money from the corners. I've called him basically the prime version of like a super PJ Tucker type before OG Anunoby. So in my mind, that makes way more sense if you're trading Gary Trent Jr. to make the contracts work, Scottie Barnes, and then throw in Thad Young and Chris Boucher and Grady Dick or whatever, just because those guys need to be included to make the money work. And then they are also apparently interested in Grady Dick. Now, look, you're losing at least 3 rotation players between Scottie, Gary Trent Jr., and potentially Grady Dick, who is supposed to be an important floor spacer for them. But ultimately, you're getting Damian Lillard back in the trade. And yes, you will be a little bit top heavy, but they still have NBA caliber rotation players beyond that on their team. Like, Precious Achiuwa isn't great, but he's a fine bench big.
Chris Boucher is fine.
Chris Boucher would have to be included in the trade for money purposes, I believe. How much does Scottie Barnes make?
No, Scott. I did the math on this earlier. Like, you have Otto Porter's like dead. I
forgot
money,
they had Otto Porter's dead money.
Yeah, which is just, you can just waive that. You actually don't have to put Chris Boucher in the deal.
Okay.
Scottie Barnes makes 8. You could put Chris Boucher in instead of Thad Young if you wanted to. You do need 5 guys though. So the package I came up with was Gary Trent, Scottie, Thad Young, Otto Porter, Grady Dick.
And keep in mind, Thad Young, Otto Porter are basically just filler at this point in their career.
Yeah.
So that's not like you're losing anything really. And you would still have, Chris Boucher, Precious Achiuwa, Dennis Schroeder, guys who are at least NBA caliber rotation players, despite some of their flaws. Like, you would still have a pretty decent team beyond that. If you go the other way and you decide to trade OG Anunoby, I think it creates more structural issues. And you're kind of doubling down on this issue that you've already created in Toronto, which is we don't know whether we want to rebuild or contend right now. And that is part of the reason why, if you are trading for Damian Lillard, not only should Scottie Barnes be in the room or on the table, it makes more sense to trade him than it does to trade OG Anunoby. The question becomes, how valuable is Scottie Barnes in a trade to the Portland Trailblazers? And I mean, I'm not sure, but I'm sure that they would prefer to get they're going after Ayton, who's a big, because they already have these 3 guards they're trying to build around in Sharp, Simons, and Scoot. And then you have Scottie coming in, who's a wing size guy at least. And then you add Ayton to the mix as well. I just think it makes more sense than like the deal that's out there for Tyler Hero, which Tyler Hero makes no sense on the Trailblazers. And then how much value is any third team really giving up for him?
No. And the important thing is, people might be thinking, well, Gary Trent doesn't make sense, just like Tyler Hero. Gary Trent is very flippable. Gary Trent's a good 3-point shooter. He's a good defender. He's expiring. Like, like the Blazers could use him. Also, Gary Trent's been in the building before for the Blazers. Like they've already done that trade.
Yeah,
like
his dad actually went on the radio and talked shit on the Blazers before, which would be funny. But also, I mean, it was basically a completely different team when he was there. I mean, I don't even think I think that was Neil O'Shea traded him for Norm Powell, and Dame and CJ are gone. Different coach, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it would, if Dame got traded, I think it literally would be a completely different team besides Nurkic that he played for.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and if Nurkic will be gone. If Nurkic is included for Ayton for some reason that we still can't figure out, other than maybe Matt Ishbia is regretting spending so much money on Bradley Beal, and the fact that they traded for almost $100 million worth of contracts between Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, and maybe he's having some buyer's remorse and saying, let's cut corners wherever we can and get Nurkic instead of Ayton, who makes like $15 million less a year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it might just be something like that. I mean, that's the thing that I don't understand is like, it sounds to me like this Ayton Nurkic thing would be done if they didn't think it was going to be looped in to the Dame trade somehow.
Right.
Which makes me wonder about, because I've heard, I don't know how much of this is Miami Heat fans go. I've heard the Pacers come up a lot in connection with like a Miami trade as like
for Hero.
Yeah. I don't even know if it's like for Hero. There was like stuff of like Buddy Hield going somewhere, and like TJ McConnell going somewhere, and like some of this other stuff. So it's like,
because if you're the Pacers, if you get TJ, if you get Tyler Hero, then you filled your white guy guard quota.
Quotient.
Yeah. We have a Hoosier on the team, so we could just trade TJ McConnell now.
Right. Yeah. I think the other one, the Jazz's interest in Tyler Hero has been much reported. I find that kind of fascinating, like, because they have a lot of guys who are like, Keontae George.
Yep, Keontae George. Yeah,
Keontae George is going to be like a shoot first guy. They have Jordan Clarkson, one of the OG like 6 man of the year empty stat guys, like who's probably going to start for them this year, by the way, which is very funny.
Yeah. Sexton's always being floated in trades, like since the second he signed with them and in the Donovan Mitchell trade. Like he's been like, do you want him? I mean, like, I don't know. It's like we'll see like the Pokemon evolution of Sexton, Hero, and Jordan Clarkson.
Well, this is what I was gonna say. Like, okay, everyone needs to get past the idea that 6 man of the year means anything besides you're not a good enough NBA player to start. Because every time somebody says, well, he's 6 man of the year, that guy sucks. People yelling at me like that's trade Malcolm Brogdon because he won 6 man of the year. I'm sorry, shut the fuck up. Like, he's not good. Heat fans saying, "Oh, Tyler Hero is a 6 man of the year kid." Nobody gives a shit.
He won, actually. Him and Jordan Clarkson both won 6 man of the year. Also, Lou Williams and Jordan and Jamal Crawford should be in the Hall of Fame. We all agree on that.
Yeah.
We're all in agreement that the 6 men should be in the Hall of Fame. You're a hater. You're not a real hooper.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like the Hoopers Award. You know what I'm saying? Like it just
that's what it's become. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of always been that way. To be fair, yeah. Malcolm Brogdon's probably the least hooper of any guy who's won it in the last like 10 years.
He's still a pretty big hooper though. He has a fatal allergy to playing good defense and loves not passing. So I think that's a.
I don't know. If you ever been
sending me all the assist percentages, Malcolm Brogdon.
We're not talking about Malcolm Brogdon anymore. We're not talking about Malcolm Brogdon. It's unbelievable. It took you 30 minutes to get this into the episode.
I'm just getting mad about Malcolm Brogdon every day is my life. So
but final statement on that. If you've ever been in the war room with Barack Obama, like I'm sure Malcolm Brogdon has been, you cannot be considered a hooper.
Yeah, that's true.
Except for Joe Biden. He's a bucket.
But shout out to Union Joe, by the way, out on the UAW lines.
King. Yeah.
All the Obama stuff,
just like Josh Hawley.
Yeah. All the Obama staffers were mad about that, which is awesome.
That rules.
That's so funny.
So the other, I just want to wrap up some of the other things that we heard on Friday from the same same group of people that basically got everything confirmed later. The things that we heard is the Raptors backed out last second. There was a deal that was agreed upon. HP Basketball later reported something like this. Shocker, Masai drops the ball, whatever. And now, of course, Raptors state media is throwing water on it and saying it's not going to happen. The Sixers' involvement, which Kyle Neubeck later in the day kind of confirmed might be, he didn't come flat out say that the Sixers were like engaged with the Blazers on trade talks, but he basically said their involvement with Damian Lillard has been understated. They've made calls to Portland to see what it would take to get Damian Lillard this offseason. And from what I heard was the Sixers were interested, but they do not want to give up Tyrese Maxey. And that's been the whole sticking point of these conversations. So the idea behind what Daryl Morey wants to do was essentially trade James Harden to the Clippers, include whatever else he could possibly get picks wise, redirect that to Portland along with whatever we can give up to try to get Damian Lillard without giving up Tyrese Maxey. Now, both Kyle Neubeck and Derek Bodner both said that they believe Maxey needs to be involved in any sort of deal in order to make it happen. And I think especially if OG and Scottie Barnes are involved or at least on the table in some capacity, that I think that they would have to throw in a Maxey level prospect to even be in the room, because like we're talking about the Blazers getting Terrence Mann and some picks and maybe, I don't know, DeAnthony Melton. Like it's just not moving the needle in a way that I would hope it would.
How dare you speak on Amir Coffey like that?
No disrespect to Kobe Brown, but I don't think that they're jumping. And if that were the case, then the Blazers should probably just do a deal directly with the Clippers. Is my whole thing. Like that's it's like, why are the Sixers getting Damian Lillard? Because if the Sixers had if the Sixers had the picks that the Pelicans have or the Thunder have, and they could throw in 4 more first round picks, sure, that would make a ton of sense. But the Clippers and the Sixers are in the same position in that they just don't really have the picks to make this kind of trade work.
You're forgetting, because then for the Clippers, if he's at point guard instead of shooting guard, then Dame has to come off the bench behind Russell Westbrook. So,
true, good point. Yeah, I forgot.
Russell Westbrook won an MVP. Dame's MVPs 0, just like his
good point
number. So
yeah. Also, conference finals championships. Russell Westbrook 1. Damian Lillard 0. Yeah. Conference final, our favorite stat, conference finals championships when you make it to the NBA finals. That was what was on the Damian Lillard meme. It was like how it started, how it's going. And it said conference championships. I was like, yeah, I always love to call it conference finals championships, not NBA finals appearances. But yeah, that's why I'm very skeptical that the Sixers could get involved. Now, if they're willing to involve Maxey and they're willing to include Maxey, completely changes the conversation. They could probably make a deal happen tonight if they wanted to. And they did not sign Tyrese Maxey to that extension. And they can say all day it's because of the cap space plan. But I do think that in the back of their mind, they're thinking that if the Damian Lillard price drops to the point where it's basically just Maxey, and then you can either turn Harden into something, or you can flip Harden, or you can try to convince Harden to stay with Dame, I think that they would be more than open to that. But that's just speculation. That's not anything I've heard. Everything, all I've ever heard is that they want to keep Maxey and that he's still on the team and blah, blah, blah. So I'm just saying I'm trying to put the pieces together. And I don't see the Sixers getting involved, but as of last Friday, they were trying to get Damian Lillard without giving up Tyrese Maxey. So if Daryl Morey gets away with this, he might pass Donald Trump all time for wriggling his way out of a jam, because that would be an all timer.
If he gets honestly, even if he does it with giving up Maxey, like, because I want to be clear.
No. I'm going to shoot you if you say anything.
Okay, hold on.
No, you can say it.
Let me be clear. I like Tyrese Maxey a lot more.
Carefully.
than these other guys I'm going to mention. Okay,
Sure.
Tyrese Maxey is not the same player as these other guys I'm going to mention, but we do talk about the small shoot first point guards coming off of the rookie scale contracts and how the value changes. Like Tyler Hero was a real trade asset. Re-sign that contract is no longer a trade asset. Anthony Simons, similar, was a trade asset. No longer. Anthony Simons is very available right now, and the league is like, we're good.
Yeah,
we are
guys who aren't in this mold that are like Zach LaVine's bigger and he's a better defender, and but everything we've heard is that no one wants Zach LaVine, like,
which is crazy to me. Like, is he like just a real dickhead, like in the locker room or something? It's got to be something like that, because I like look at Zach LaVine's numbers. I'm like, he'd be pretty fucking good. Like, I would love for the Celtics. I mean, like, look, I love a lot of these. I mean, the seal is broken now. Like, we're not building our team of destiny. Smart's dead, so why not go for it? Trade Rob Williams and whatever else, and however many picks.
You're like, what if we had another version of Jalen? We need two Jalen.
He can dribble.
Yeah. He's a better shooter too.
Yeah, but like, why not? Like, so anyway, the point is, I didn't mean to get on it. So the point is that, like, is it the worst idea in the world to trade Tyrese Maxey right now? And I say this as someone who understands the appeal of having a guy to root for who's not just like laundry, because that would be my answer. Like, that was why I'm still so fucking mad about the Marcus Smart thing. It's honestly at a certain point stops being about Smart and starts being about you yanked one of my guys out from under me. So like,
Porzingis means nothing to you. You watched Smart his whole career. That's how I feel about this. But Damian Lillard is way better than Kristaps Porzingis. And a perfect fit with Joel Embiid, to be completely honest. Like, and honestly, if they made the trade, it would break my heart, but I would totally understand it. From a fan perspective, I'd probably be really upset. And if they made it to the conference finals, I'd probably get over it. Like, that's just kind of how things happen. I want to root for Maxey for the next decade, and I haven't loved a Sixer like Maxey since Iverson. But at the same time, I understand that Joel Embiid is not getting any younger, and that Damian Lillard is going to take you from being, with the Harden situation just completely being fucked, even if he comes back and plays for the team. Damian Lillard's obviously the best guy you could go get and to potentially win a title. It also starts the clock ticking on Daryl Morey, and he probably doesn't want that. He probably wants a contract extension, although maybe trading for Damian Lillard is the way to get that contract extension, because look, Dame, he's older and Embiid's getting older too. But if you did trade for him, any team that traded for him is probably going to have a 2 to 3 year window, I would say. Maybe he falls off shorter than that, because small guards sometimes can fall off pretty quickly. We've seen it recently with Chris Paul and Kyle Lowry and all those guys, but Dame's quite a bit younger than those guys were when they fell off. So I don't know. I understand, but I don't think it's going to end up happening. So, all right. Last thing I want to say that I heard here was the Bulls are interested in Damian Lillard, and they have a good relationship. Him and DeMar have a very good relationship. They share an agent, Aaron Goodwin. Dame has not pushed back publicly on the, like, we saw leaks about him not wanting to go to Toronto. And I think the Toronto thing was probably more that he's like, how much would I have to pay in taxes? and I have to live in another country. Like, I think that he would be more open to Chicago, but I actually think that he'd be better. Like, if his goal is to really win a title, the Raptors give him a much better chance than the Bulls with DeMar and Vooch.
Yeah.
But that's an unworkable fit, even if you're able to figure out a way to trade like LaVine to a third team and include Patrick Williams or whatever.
Also, Masai has literally done this before. Like, traded for the number one guy and then built a winner around that number one guy in very short order, literally in one season. So
it was not, to be fair, it was not a small guard. It was a big wing. And we know Masai has a little bit of a size fetish.
Yeah.
He's a size king, if you will.
He's a size king.
Yeah.
But they do, they do have OG as the, like, they do have OG and Pascal, what I'm saying? Like, so they have
They filled his fetish quota is what you're
Yes,
trying
that's
to
what I'm
say.
saying. You have two giant wings, and then you've got your big dopey Euro guy in Jakob Pertl. You know, like the Marc Gasol role. Now
Sure.
he's not the passer or anything like that. That Marc Gasol was. He's also a billion years younger than Marc Gasol was when he was traded. You know, like Marc Gasol was kind of on his way out. That was
Yeah.
like the last good. That was the last ringing of juices that was going on for him. So, yeah, but I don't know. Everyone's poo pooing the Raptors thing. Is like, well, why would he go there? He was going to win a top. It's literally the same situation as Miami to me. I don't know. It's like this is we're talking about a teams that won 44 and 41 games in the regular season. Like
For
Miami,
the record, I don't agree with that, but everyone already knows that.
the Mickey Mouse shooting has like warped everyone's brains about what Miami is, and they lost.
Still been to 3 conference finals in the last 4 years.
One of the most shallow teams in the league, and they lost 2 rotation players, and their other rotation players had to play above their heads. Like, I'm just saying, like, I don't. It's not going to go well. I would love. I am praying on my. I said this earlier. I am praying on my hands and knees that Miami trades for Dame and they keep Tyler Hero in the trade. I am praying on my hands and knees. I'm asking God, please do not send him to Toronto. Please send Damian Lillard to Miami. You can clip this if it happens, because I'm gonna live and die by these words. The Miami Heat are over for 5 years if they trade for Damian Lillard, and Tyler Hero is not in the deal.
Well, I don't think they're gonna do that because no one's really talking about this. The Heat's ownership has been historically pretty cheap. Like they've never really been one to go deep into the luxury tax. They've never really been big spenders. The reason why they've been so good for so long is because Spo gets garbage and turns it into gold. Like they pay guys and it's largely like the reason why they let Max Strus and Gabe Vincent and all those guys go. They have been, kind of like struck down and it kind of came back to bite them with the Duncan Robinson contract, and they had some other deals that they had to do, but that was just to fill up salary cap. Like that wasn't to go deep into the tax. Like I think that they would trade. They're gonna trade Hero because I think the fact is Kyle Lowry's contract is expiring and could easily be dumped, and they don't want to pay a big tax bill. And if that's the case, they have to include Hero. Like there are ways to make this trade happen without including Hero if the Blazers really don't want it, like his contract. But that's not even an option because I think Heat's ownership is just cheap as shit, to be honest.
Yeah. You literally just trade Kyle Lowry instead. There's a ready-made answer for that.
It's expiring contract. You could literally, if they were like no, but you could still give them every pick and swap you could possibly give, and those fringe prospects like Jovic and Jaquez and whatever.
That's the funniest thing. That's the funniest thing about this trade is that they're acting like Tyler Hero's a sweet deal. It's like, okay, sick, keep Tyler Hero and make the trade without him. Yeah, you must be ecstatic.
Yeah,
to have Tyler Hero on the team. Yeah.
I was saying yesterday, it's kind of like they might have got a little bit too deep, and I know it's ironic of me saying this as a Sixers fan, but they might have got too deep in the NFT game. What was their old arena? FTX arena.
Yeah, FTX arena. Yeah,
they might have got too deep into the blockchain game where they are now trying to take Tyler Hero's NFT contract and convince everyone that it has real value, even though 97% of NFTs are completely worthless now. And it's like, no, Tyler Hero's contract is awesome. Why doesn't anyone want it, including us? We also do not want it on our books. So that tells you everything you need to know about that. But let's get into some of the cope. Actually, last thing before we move on to that. Let's say you're the Blazers. Let's say you're our Chad King, Joe Cronin, who has done miracles on us and is saving us from this horrible Miami Heat team getting their way and all that jazz. If you're Joe Cronin, Chad King Hero, would you prefer to get Scottie Barnes or OG Anunoby in the package back? If you're just making a straight up trade, let's say you get OG, you're getting Ayton, like you're moving Nurkic and whatever it takes to get Ayton. So you get Ayton, and then you can have one of OG or Barnes in the trade. I don't even care about picks. Who would you rather have? I think I'd rather have OG.
If I was the Blazers,
Yes.
but he's expiring.
True. That is a good point. Yeah.
That's the thing, is like, I mean, I guess with the new rules, you can extend guys easier, but OG is one of the rare guys where that might not matter, because I think he wants a pay bump
30% of the cap shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he wants a pay bump that is more than the extension rules, which
Right.
I don't know. I'd rather, like I said, I'm not saying Scottie Barnes is bad, you know what I'm saying? But just like, he's not good right now. And if you're trading for Dame, he's not going to be good in the next 2 years, probably.
And not a great fit, like we explained.
Yeah, like we explained. So I think Scottie can be like, okay, especially if there is another guy in Scoot who is, kind of the Jason Tatum to his Jaylen Brown. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like that fit a lot better. So I think I would still take Scottie over OG, but because just as, again, OG's pretty young still, and OG's right now, to be clear, a lot better. But I just worry about that contract thing, and especially if I'm a bad team trying to re-sign a guy, like, and then I'm caught on the whatever.
The one thing I will say about the Blazers, though, is they're not shy about paying guys. I mean, what did they just pay Nurkic and Grant and Dame in back-to-back off seasons? Yeah. They just gave out hundreds of millions of dollars to those three players. And they if they open up the checkbook and OG's like, okay, maybe I could get an expanded role there. And then the team, like, I don't know, like, look, if Scoot is him from the jump and your starting lineup is Scoot, Simons, OG, Jeremy Grant, Ayton, and Sharp coming off the bench, that's a pretty solid team. Like, it's definitely way better than where they would be if they decided to just go straight into the tank and do the rebuild thing. But also, I'm just thinking, like, how's the Ayton Barnes fit? How does that work? What level of shooter does Scoot need to become to make the spacing all workable with all these guys? Is it beneficial to have Barnes on a team where he's going to need reps when you're trying to develop Sharp and Scoot? Like, I kind of think that OG would be a better fit personally, but that's also not taking into account that, like, Barnes, you have contract control over for the next 6 to 7 years. And that in itself might be worth it to the Blazers, even if they just trade for him and then they trade him later to another team. You're in asset accumulation mode or whatever. And you're like, okay, we have all these guys and then we'll see which ones stick. And then we can trade someone later maybe. But it will be interesting to see. The reports coming out of Miami, the Miami Herald reported today that it's probably not going to be to Miami anymore. And if it's not Miami, then Toronto, it's like Toronto, Chicago, Philly, Boston. I don't think Boston's going to be in. They're already spending so much money.
That one is insane. We're not, like, I've thought my way through it, trying to do it. But again, speaking of cheap ownership, that under the radar cheap ownership, Boston's another one. Like, they're not doing that, especially when they've re-signed Porzingis. Like, they're not gonna They're not gonna do that as well. So I think they should actually think about it. Like, why not? You've already gone mercenary mode with this team, so, like,
sure.
Why not take the extra half step? If these packages, like, Toronto can obviously blow away a Boston sports package, but I think they could. The Boston could probably top the Miami package, though. Like, if that's what it is, So, like,
yeah, I mean, if they have no value, if they don't value Hero at all, you might just need to include, like we said before, like Derek White and Rob Williams or something. And I don't know. We'll see, though. I'm interested to see. We do need to talk a little bit about the Heat media coping over this whole thing, which has been just an absolute joy to watch. They're out in full force right now, trying to say that the lying media and the very crooked Portland Trailblazers are going to rue the day that they ever doubted the great Tyler Hero. To quote our friend Barry Jackson, aka Florida Sports Buzz on Twitter, FLA Sports Buzz, a veteran NBA scout calls out the Portland Trailblazers. straight from the horse's mouth here. Just a very reliable source, Barry Jackson, the guy who said that Tua getting concussions was actually cool and good. Portland doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. They're totally valuing Tyler Hero and overvaluing OG Anunoby.
Mm-hmm.
OG is currently a better player than Tyler Hero. He's also a harder archetype to find and fits better with Portland's team. So the only advantage that Hero really has over OG is that he's locked up under contract and most of the league doesn't want his contract.
Yeah.
So that kind of kills that advantage in his factor. Okay, let's see. What else was there? Oh, Dan Lebitard today, friend of the show, Dan Lebitard, said they didn't even pay, talking about the Toronto Raptors, they didn't even pay Kyle Lowry when he was getting a little bit older.
I forgot about that, yeah.
Do you know how old Kyle Lowry was when they didn't pay him?
He was 37. Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah. So
Damian Lillard's 33 coming off the best year of his career. Kyle Lowry didn't even make the All-Star team the year before that. Damian Lillard made third-team All-NBA, and he barely played.
Also, wasn't Kyle Lowry, pretty explicitly, asking out at that point, too?
It was pretty much on they almost traded him at the deadline, and then they traded him because he was showing signs of declining, whereas Dame is coming off arguably the best year of his career and is also just a completely different level of player at that point in his career.
Yeah.
It's not a 1-for-1. It's not a good comparison at all, in my opinion. And yes, maybe later in the contract, sure. But if you're trading for Dame now, you're trying to make your window the next 2 to 3 years. You're not worried about 4 years from now if you're making that trade. It just makes no sense at all. Okay. And then I already brought up this one, which was the Giannis or Embiid thing. Doesn't make any sense because you're going to waste another Jimmy Butler season. And then the Miami Heat Herald reporter saying that it probably won't get done. I just think it's great to watch all of the spoiled brats who have always gotten their way in Miami have to throw a fit over this whole thing. You stole Jimmy Butler from us. I will never feel bad for you.
Yeah.
I hope you burn forever.
Right. Miami. I'm so sorry that happened to you. You guys got one of the biggest get out of jail free cards ever in the Jimmy Butler thing.
You got your last 5 years luck. Okay. You're not getting it again until you somehow make this work.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And then the Jimmy Butler thing was just filled with some of the most insane luck that's ever the last year's shooting, they had a pretty normal path the year the Celtics beat them in 7. If they had gone to the if they had gone to the finals that year, I would be less
they were the 1 seed that year.
That's what I'm saying. They were the 1 seed that year. Yeah. But all these other years, there's the pandemic that fucks everything up, and then there's they've been the direct beneficiaries of some sort of horrific Bucks collapse every year.
Of the year, at this point,
With Bud not there anymore, I wonder if they're going to be able to
harness that.
Yeah, maybe it'll just be the Joe Mazzulla collapse that they'll have to rely on now.
We got a new one.
Yeah, it's gonna come in. Anyway, Miami should worry about making the playoffs first before they start talking shit. By the way.
Oh, Jesus Christ! All right, so another tweet from our guy Gambo, whose entire reputation is on the line. All right, don't go to his page. Don't go to his page. I want to read it.
Okay.
All right, ready? So for anyone who missed this, we talked about Gambo's reputation being on the line as a slot purveyor on the Patreon part of the last episode. And we talked about how Gambo is the lowest level of slot purveyor that we'll quote on the show. Because he gets things wrong a lot. He doesn't have a hit rate quite like these other slot purveyors do. And he said within 24 hours he expected a trade to happen. That was on Thursday. Obviously, that did not happen.
Yeah.
He was saying it was imminent, all of that. Here is him quoting NBA at NBA Trade Report, one of my favorite accounts.
Perfect.
That just makes up shit all the time.
Yeah.
Phoenix has engaged with Toronto and Portland as the third team in a potential Damian Lillard trade. The Suns are looking to acquire Yusuf Nurkic from Portland. And Gambo quote tweeted it 9 hours after they tweeted that and said, "And here we go." Let's go, Gambo. It's our guy, John Gambadoro.
I love Gambo. The funniest thing about Gambo is he actually knows people and does get stuff right, but he's also like an easily tricked boomer. Like it's very funny. Like,
he's literally Keith Pompey from when he had sources like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But he's just letting it fly. There's no amazing. It's like they tweeted this random account. Oh, Jesus Christ. 9 hours ago. But look, he was the first person to report the Nurkic thing. Credit to him. He was the first person to report the Nurkic thing. And we've heard that like 100 times since. So it's totally possible that is a real thing that could happen for some reason. And maybe Gambo ends up being vindicated. But certainly calling his shot for 24 hours did not work out for him. So, all right. We talked about that for long enough. We will only talk about the Damian Lillard stuff when there is new information. I think it's probably going to get done in the next week or two, so that we'll have some updates. I mean, unless they want to bring him back to camp and just ride it out Daryl Morey style, I do think that we'll probably have some more information in the next week or two to kind of deliver some more slop to you guys. But until then, let's do a segment that Sam came up with a little bit earlier that we wanted to talk about, which is, can you quote the exact thing? It was one thing from every team.
Yeah, I was saying this is a little bit of a
Zach Lowe,
Bill Simmons, all the podcasts I listen to that we rip off, mismatch a little bit here, but I thought it would be fun to have Trill and I go through, like, we're in the wind up here officially for like season preview stuff, and kind of teams are mostly set. But we're going to start with one of the teams that's the least set, as Dame is bound to go out here. But we're going to start with the Northwest Division. And what we're going to talk about is Trill and I are each going to ask each other. We're going to have the other one answer our most pressing question that we have. So we will go through each of the 5 teams and
the burning questions, if you will.
The burning questions, if you will, the question that we have the most, and then ask the other for our input. So we're going to start with the Northwest Division, and we're going to start with the defending champion Denver Nuggets. I think this is a good place to start because I think the Nuggets are one of the most sure things in the league, to be honest. So I think it's a good place to start with them. But I will admit, Trill, my one burning question about the Nuggets that I'd like you to answer: how are they going to look without Bruce Brown?
I think it's going to be surprisingly fine. I think it's going to be. We talked about them a little bit before during the offseason. We both really liked their draft. The fact that they just took swings on a few guys that we liked in the draft. The fact that Christian Brown, no relation to Ava, is going to be coming into his second year. I think he'll probably just grow into that role. Now, I don't think he's going to be as good as Bruce Brown was for them last year, but was a rookie last year and played real big minutes for them in the playoffs. I think that he'll be able to fill most of that role pretty well. One of the things with him coming out of college, I had Chuck on my podcast like a year ago, and we talked about the Sixers potentially targeting Christian Brown in the draft. And we talked about like dribble, shoot, pass guys. And he was like, he's a dribble, pass, defend guy. And you hope that the shot comes along. And in his first year, he shot pretty well. He's going to get a ton of open looks. And what's the thing that, Bruce Brown grew into over the course of his career? Basically that. So I think Christian Brown will be able to fill in fairly nicely. They'll just expand his role this upcoming year. And then all you're looking to find is someone to fill the Christian Brown role from last year. So whether that's, Jalen Pickett, who they drafted from Penn State, Julian Strawther, who they got from Gonzaga in the draft, or maybe they just decide to go a little bit bigger, play a little bit bigger, and they have Hunter Tyson, who's more of like I believe he's like a stretch 3 or stretch 4 type guy that they could use and just have some different looks. As long as they have that starting five, I think that every year is just going to be them piecing together the bench and figuring it out for the course of the season. And hey, if they can't find anyone, finding a seventh and eighth man to put around Jokic and Murray, the Jokic and Murray pick and roll is one of the easiest things to do in the NBA. And they could probably just trade for someone at the deadline, to be completely honest.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of where I came down with a lot of this, just because I kind of go back and forth, because on the one hand, I'm like, I think he's a six man. His importance is probably a little overstated. That type of player isn't that hard to fill. He's a very good player, but that type of player isn't that hard to find.
Yeah.
But on the other side of the coin, I'm like, well, they did get him and win the title immediately.
Yeah, they did, but they also were missing Jamal Murray the year before.
That's true. That's also true.
The loss of Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr.'s back, which seemingly is better now. That is the thing for me that is way more important than getting Bruce Brown. But Bruce definitely helped their depth a lot. Like, Jeff Green played real minutes for them in the playoffs too. He wasn't always great, but he was a rotation player for them. So they did lose 2 rotation players. It's not nothing, I would say. Mm-hmm. I think that it's going to take some time to figure out some of the depth stuff, especially during the non-Jokic minutes. But when the playoffs come around and the rotation shrinks to 7 or 8, I think they'll be totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So my question for you is, what happens when Michael Porter Jr. leaves the team to join Nikki Haley's campaign for the 2024 presidential?
Well, you feel like it's going to be a package with him and Jonathan Isaac, right? So what is that? That's like $50 million. So who's coming back? Are they getting Ross Douthat to kind of fill those minutes? It's going to depend on what sort of balancing act they're doing. In the meantime, I mean, look, the jab is real. Look up vaccine. I do wonder if there is a little bit of a. I wonder if there is something where Michael Porter Jr. might tweet something at some point this year.
But follow in the footsteps of Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, I was going to say, just with it being an election year.
Yeah, true.
I wouldn't sleep on.
The stakes are higher.
Yeah. Michael Porter Jr. coming out with like full QAnon, like if Michael Porter Jr. just starts posting like all the different angles of John Fetterman, like anyone, what's going on here?
His ears?
You're telling me this is the same guy?
His ears are different.
Yeah.
Look, I know they say that he had a stroke, but like he looks different than he did before. He talks different too. Oh, Jesus Christ. No, but in all seriousness, the only question I have about the Nuggets is, can Michael Porter Jr.'s back stay intact? That's the only thing that matters to me. Because if Jokic and Murray are healthy, which I think Murray's injury was more of an outlier than anything else. Towards ACL, that happens sometimes. Mm-hmm. All their other guys are relatively healthy. KCP always plays a lot of games. Aaron Gordon generally does. Jokic never gets hurt. It's Michael Porter Jr. Did that surgery really fix his back? Because if the surgery fixed his back, they're going to be good. I mean, they're going to be good either way, but they're going to be legit championship contenders for the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I think that, well, and yeah, I mean, I guess that is the thing. Cause like we kind of had that pegged as like, that might be one of the worst contracts in the NBA.
Yeah. A year ago, I think I literally said like, I would trade him for Tobias Harris or whatever.
And, I kind of agreed with you at the time. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, like, look, if they can get through Michael Porter Jr.'s contract and he has like 2 of these next 4 seasons are healthy seasons, that's a W in my book. Like, that's so much better. So, like, especially if they can just get him like healthy through the playoffs. Like, I don't even need him to be healthy. He can like DH his way through the regular season with like the way the West is and how much more talented they're.
That was probably the thought behind getting Hunter Tyson, is my guess. Is like there might be some weeks where we just kind of got to rest him and we need to have a big guy who can shoot, and that's all Hunter Tyson will do for them.
Yeah, And I think that's a solid thing. All right. Well, moving on off of our beautiful Denver Nuggets, we're gonna move to Trill and I's bugaboo, the team that has haunted us this time last year. We were tricked, hornswoggled, hoodwinked, led astray by the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Hornswoggled. You added that one. That's way too white for Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I guess that's true. Yeah. Bamboozled. I can't remember all of it, but
bamboozled, led astray, run amok.
Run amok. That's what it was. So my question when it comes to the Minnesota Timberwolves is, do they trade Cat in season?
House. Is Karl-Anthony Towns on the Timberwolves in January?
Let's go.
No, I don't think they do. I don't think they trade him in season. Crazier things have happened. Mm-hmm. I don't think they trade him in season only because I think they really want to try to make this thing work with Gobert and Cat. They want to give it one more crack. And maybe that is kind of the potentially compounding the issue that you already made from your first mistake, trading Karl-Anthony Towns. But in general, it doesn't really seem, it's kind of similar to the Zach LaVine situation where it doesn't feel like there's an appetite for Karl-Anthony Towns around the NBA since he signed that contract. Mm-hmm. And if that is the case, I don't see a trade in which they get better. And if there isn't a trade they get better, you might as well just try to ride out the Karl-Anthony Towns contract, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't really see a way that they're trading Karl-Anthony Towns unless they get involved in the Damian Lillard sweepstakes. But even then, Portland doesn't want Cat. They've kind of gone on record saying that. I've heard from multiple people saying like they have zero interest in Cat. So I can't find a team that would trade for Karl-Anthony Towns. Even if I think he could help some teams, I don't see a team out there that would give up good value to get Karl-Anthony Towns that would make the Timberwolves better. But there could be some locker room shit we don't know about, which always, like, I mean, you certainly have, he hasn't gotten along with teammates in the past. Rudy hasn't gotten along with teammates in the past. There's potential for something to boil over there, just like it did with D'Lo last year.
What about you? Would you do Cam Johnson, like a pick, and Dorian Finney-Smith for Karl-Anthony Towns if you're the Timberwolves?
If I'm the Timberwolves, yeah, I'd probably do that. I think Cat might have become a little bit, the pendulum might have swung too far the other direction. He might have become a little bit underrated, kind of how Trae Young has in the last year or two, because of his major flaws and the fact that he got paid so much money. But honestly, if you're Brooklyn, I just don't see them doing that kind of trade. Like,
really,
I don't see them. I don't see Brooklyn. Like, I think if Brooklyn makes that kind of all-in type move, I think that they might make a few in a row, and I think that they might be swinging for guys that are seen more positively around the league, like Donovan Mitchell.
Well, that was my thought behind that trade. Is it's not really an all-in trade if you're trading Cam Johnson. You're just upgrading the Cam Johnson spot, and using Dorian Finney-Smith, who's probably not part of your future plans, and one of your picks.
True, actually,
yeah. I think you can
actually not. You just came up with that off the top of your head. It's not a bad trade idea. Honestly, I think that might make sense for both teams. Like, Cam Johnson's probably a better fit for what the Timberwolves need. Karl-Anthony Towns would be by far the most dynamic offensive player on the Nets, and they have Claxton who can cover up a lot of his issues that he has on defense. Not in a way that's like Rudy. Like, he's not like a pure drop center. Like, Claxton can switch. Claxton's way more athletic. He can play multiple different schemes on defense. And like, offensively, like, it might be a little bit of a weird fit, but Cat can space the floor. And like, I don't know. Actually, now that you say it like that, I kind of like that trade.
I'm just thinking. I'm just spitballing here. And
you could still go get Donovan Mitchell in the offseason if you want.
That's what I was
Then you have
thinking.
Donovan Mitchell, Bridges, and Cat.
God, can you imagine Donovan Mitchell going from one loser teammate big to another loser teammate big and being a big loser himself who ran from the grind in Cleveland?
Is Mikal Bridges enough of a winner to make up for it?
That's the thing. Yeah, it would be a real Mikal Bridges like stress test,
Yeah.
because Here's the other thing: is I kind of quietly think that things could go really bad for Phoenix this year, and if things go really bad for Phoenix right now, then Mikal Bridges is he the one? Is what I'm gonna say.
Oh, it's that he was part of the. Well, I mean, yeah, but they still have Devin Booker.
Could Mikal Bridges have the Jimmy Butler type of career trajectory where he goes from being like a 3-and-D wing guy to like all of a sudden being like all NBA guy every year? Like
the reason why I'm skeptical of that one is that maybe because Jimmy also came into the league a little bit later. Is that Jimmy showed, if you look at Jimmy's like early stats in his career, he always got to the line like crazy. He always was a good playmaker for the amount of usage he got. It was just always an inevitability that he would grow into the player that he became. Whereas Bridges, even as he scales up and he plays in this more of this role, he's just not the playmaker or passer that's even close to that level of guy to be like the number one guy on a team. Could he be the second or third guy, like a really good one? Yeah, I definitely think he could. He's a really, really good shooter. He's a decent enough creator. Like I said, I've always seen him more as like a Chris Middleton type than a Jimmy Butler type. Mm-hmm. But still, it's a great player to have. It's not any shade. I just think that like he probably tops out as like in best case scenario, he's like third team All NBA, lower level All Star.
Okay. Yeah, that's
27 going on 28. Like he's already kind of older.
Yeah, that's
Jimmy is like the best post 30 player. It's him and Steve Nash are like the best post 30 players of all time.
Yeah.
That's
kind of and LeBron.
Well, yeah, but LeBron was already LeBron.
You mean like comparatively to like where
the leap?
Yeah,
the leap that they took from 26 to 31 or whatever is like MVP candidate Steve Nash when he won multiple MVPs and finals.
Kyle Lowry's was pretty big too.
Kyle Lowry's was really good, but Kyle Lowry made his first All-Star team. Yeah. Lowry and Billups are the other two that usually get brought up. It's usually point guards. Jimmy's kind of the outlier in that he was like the wing guy that did that. But also his analytics were always like superstar level impact. Miami was the first team to be like, you can have this full role and have a whole team. But like it was always, the proof was always in the pudding with him is what I'm trying to say.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And it's like Mikal Bridges has really good analytics. He doesn't have like top 10 player analytics.
That's true. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna stay believing. But anyway, yeah, Cat should go to the loser Brooklyn Nets and be a loser there. Anyway,
he's from New Jersey. Parm loves to point it out.
Who's
Edison?
Who is Cat's like friends in the league? Like who would be the guys he's like recruiting
Booker.
to New York?
Booker and him are good friends. They're from Kentucky.
That's actually kind of interesting too, because like if this Suns thing goes nuts, like
if Sean Marks does this, if Sean Marks makes this trade, we know the plan.
Do we know the plan? Who gave them the script?
Has Booker played with too many guys that are like he's now played with Chris Paul and Kevin Durant? If they've got to him and been like, you can't play with Cat, dude. Like,
yeah.
I see someone said D-Bronx says, isn't D-Lo his friend? Well, yeah, he recruited D-Lo to get him to the Wolves. And the idea everyone thought behind that was eventually they were going to trade for Booker, but then Booker became like a top 10 player. And everyone's like, oh, I guess that isn't really in the cards. And then they had to trade D-Lo and whatever. But that was always the vision. Like 4 or 5 years ago, they all talked about like playing together. Mm-hmm. Also, quick aside on Cat. I don't want to go too far into the NFL here, but since you can subscribe to Birds, but I came up with a comp that we talked about in the Discord the other day, and everyone thinks I'm a Trevor Lawrence hater. I'm not a Trevor Lawrence hater. Trevor Lawrence is good. I've always said Trevor Lawrence is not as good as in the NFL. In college, he was amazing. As a prospect, he was crazy heralded. He's not this generational prospect quarterback type guy that I've just never really seen it with him on that level. He's had some really good stretches. He's still really young. Maybe he can get there, whatever. I'm not like Trevor Lawrence is currently a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and that makes me a hater, apparently. But we came up with the comp for him, and I'm like, Karl Anthony Towns is almost a 1-for-1 comp.
Yeah.
For Trevor Lawrence. Remember after his second or third season in the NBA, everyone was like, would you rather have LeBron, KD, or Karl Anthony Towns? That's Trevor Lawrence to me.
Well, because he came right on the heels of Anthony Davis.
Yes.
Like another
Kentucky guy. They went
big.
undefeated. They did lose in the tournament, but they went undefeated during the regular season, that Booker and Cat team.
Yeah.
And he was the best player on that team.
Yeah, he was like, there was like, that was supposed to be like a really, really, really weak draft, I remember. And like Cat kind of like rose to the top, and like he was really good like early on, and everyone was like, oh my God, like, is this a, butterfly meme? Is this an Anthony Davis? Like, like, so, and, like people like really liked him. Like there was I remember the joke that all the Wolves fans had when Flip Saunders, RIP, was like running the team, was like, Flip's gonna draft Porzingis, you watch, like, because they were just so scarred by everything. Sure. And Porzingis was the big
at the time. Oh no, yeah, I know.
Injury, like, concern.
Who the fuck is Tingus Pingus? That was the Knicks fan when they drafted him,
right? Well, do you remember they booed?
Yeah.
Yeah, they booed when they drafted Porzingis. Just goes to show you, Knicks fans, they know ball.
Yeah, clearly
they were able to.
They knew. Well, if they had known that eventually the Celtics would trade Marcus Smart for him, then maybe they would not have booed.
Yeah, they could have had Marcus Smart in the Knicks jersey. What a cursed fucking thought. Anyway,
Tibbs would be so sicko about that.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Oh my God, he'd play Marcus 58 minutes a game, even when there's no overtime.
I was gonna say he'd send every game to overtime.
Yeah. Anyway, do you have a burning question about the Minnesota Timberwolves?
Okay, burning question for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Actually, it's not related to the best players on the team, because we've already talked ad nauseum about all these guys, Cat, Ant, Gobert, all those guys. I have two burning questions actually for you, because does Conley fall off a cliff? Because if Conley falls off a cliff at 37 or whatever he's at, that automatically gets really tough for them, because one of the reasons why they struggled last year, especially when Cat was out, was the fact that D'Lo was just not good. And then they didn't have that high-level playmaker connective piece that Mike Conley has been.
Yeah, and I don't think he's going to be good in the playoffs. Like, old guys can like string together some like regular season stuff that kind of hides it a little bit.
Well, Kyle Lowry will randomly have like a 35-point game in the play. He looks like shit most of the time in the playoffs.
Yeah,
but yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, there's like these weird things. Well, like another, Lord forgive me, but another example is Al Horford shot 45% from three in the regular season, and then shot 29% from three in the playoffs. So, like,
I just give out. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say, I just don't think like the playing that hard. Like, you can't, like, in the playoffs. I just don't think. He might hold up in the regular season, but I just don't think it's gonna hurt them in the playoffs. Like,
luckily, Ant showed that he can kind of grow into like, all right, I'll just take over a game here and there if these other guys can't really muster up the juice. But I will say the other question I have for you is, what does Jalen McDaniels' contract look like? Because he's up for an extension, and he's someone that I've thought a lot about, because we talked about him before, like, potential all defense guy. Like, he probably should have made it this last year. Jaden McDaniels. I'm sorry. Jalen's the other one. Oh yeah, he'll still be on Toronto too, by the way.
I was gonna say Toronto. Yeah, I was gonna say Toronto. Jaden McDaniels, his contract. Yeah.
Because he's someone who's been loved by nerds and kind of low-key not great by analytics, but he's also a 22-year-old wing who can shoot, create a little bit, is an elite wing defender. What does his contract look like? Because we've seen these wings get paid out the ass, and it's such a rare skill set. And they have so many contracts on their books. They're good. They already maxed Ant. Karl-Anthony Towns is on a super max. Rudy Gobert's about halfway between a max and a super max. How much money are they going to be willing to pay McDaniels going forward is my question.
So I think it depends on his offense, right? Because his defense is ready. I mean, he's a career 36% three-point shooter, but was 39 last year.
Yeah. He's just like a league average three-point shooter. Might be a little bit above average.
Yeah. 31% last year. Like, it's very funny. So his rookie year was right at his current career average. Sophomore year took a step back to 31. Last year, all up to almost 40. So, like, And that's kind of what this swings on for him, right? Is like, can you be a 3-and-D wing? Because he's got the defense. Like his 3-point rate has actually gone down as he's gone along, which
Weird.
it's pretty interesting. So turnovers are about the same.
Well, to be fair to him, D'Angelo probably never passed him the ball.
That's true. That's true.
He tended not. Oh no, he hated Rudy. Maybe he didn't hate McDaniels.
Yeah. But he also became a better shooter. His true shooting percentage was 61% last year. So
he's a really good finisher. He's super athletic.
I think under the current cap, I think he would probably get the equivalent of what OG Anunoby's extension was, but for this cap, which would probably be about $25 million or something like that.
What does OG make? Like 15?
He makes like 18 now, but it started at like 15 or something like that. So like, I think 25 million to 20 million.
That sounds right.
It could get all the way up to 30 if he has like a really good year. But
the thing is that he was the 2020 class. Mm-hmm. So he's going to have to get extended in the next 2 months. I think the deadline is sometime in October.
Yeah.
So it's going to be pretty instant. I think you're right. And I think that maybe his camp they might do the Cam Johnson thing where they hold out for more money. Yeah. Because if he hits restricted free agency next year, it just takes one team that's like, we'll give you $28 million a year or whatever.
Yeah, and it's probably not the best timing for him either, considering that like his season ended with him fucking punching a ball, and they can be like, well,
Colin Coward
don't need to be healthy. Yeah, exactly.
Colin Coward. The decision making from this guy, Exactly. You punch a wall. Has an executive for Apple ever punched a wall before?
Yeah, Steve Jobs invented the Apple iPhone. So
it's a great company. Reliable. You know what you're gonna get. Now, do they use proprietary cables? Well, they used to. They don't anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I love Coward's an underrated guy where like he has such a good formula. I love his like. Even more so than Bill. Oh, Coward's amazing.
I need to like listen to him because he's like kind of like he's what I call a Price is Right style commentator, right, where it's like if you're homesick, you know what I'm saying? Like, exactly. like he's on during like when I'm like working hours. I don't take a lot of sick days, but right, like when I was in college, like being a bum, I watched so much like PTI and stuff like in the middle of the day. So I just don't get a chance to see Coward as much these days. So
yeah, no, he's definitely. I totally agree with that. I just love to watch his clips where he'll talk about like Jalen Hurts. He's not a filet mignon. He's a cheeseburger. Awesome. Anywhere you go, you're going to get a pretty good cheeseburger. He's a high floor, low ceiling,
God, what a king. What a fucking king.
Jesus Christ. All right. So,
yeah.
What's the next team?
We will go. Did you have a second? You said, I think you had a second part to your question. Or no.
I asked both.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one, this will be a fun one. This is the back in my good graces, Oklahoma City Thunder. The Oklahoma City Thunder are back. My question for you, my burning question for you, Trill, is does Sam Presti make a consolidation trade this year?
Yeah, I think that's what we talked about a little bit before when we did the over-unders for Bill and Russillo. I think they do. I think that they wait. I think they identify whatever their weakness is because everyone's like, they still only have like 6 or 7 guys that are NBA rotation players and we don't know what they're going to get. Even if Chet is good, they might only have 8 or whatever. But I think that he has the Oladipo contract. I think he has the Bertans contract. He might even use the Dort contract depending on what Dort looks like this season, if he still has value around the league. And he might say, let's go get OG Anunoby, or let's go get Jeremy Grant, or let's go get Zach LaVine. I'm just throwing out names of guys that have been on the trade block, but let's go get this guy that will fill a need, that will help us win right now. If I had to guess, it probably wouldn't be OG because I think he'll probably trade for someone who's under contract, which is why a guy like Jeremy Grant comes to mind. Mm-hmm. I don't think he would trade for DeAndre Ayton or Karl Anthony Towns, but they're both under contract and they're always in the trade rumors. But if there is someone who becomes available, I think the Thunder, with all their picks, their expiring contracts, I think they're going to be at the front of the line, and they'll use the first 30 or 40 games of the season to diagnose whatever issue they have, and they're going to be too good to tank. So unless there's another Shea injury, I think that they will be pushing in the chips at the deadline and trying to win a playoff series next year.
I think you're right. I think you're right about that.
Let's try to think of a player that isn't like.
So I thought about Paul George for a second.
Oh God,
coming home because of the thing, but I think he's too old. Like at this point.
I also don't think the Clippers are going to trade him, especially because he's expiring. Like, if the Clippers do trade him as an expiring, it's going to be to a team where he might re-sign, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Another one I kind of thought of, Jaylen Brown.
Oh boy, already?
It's hard to make the money work is the problem with that one. And that's honestly going to be OKC's problem with a lot of these guys is it's like you have like your Lou Dort, you have your Davis Bertans, you have like some of these like middling money guys, but like these are guys that teams that are actually trying to compete are probably not really going to want back if they're trading you a good player. So like I wonder about like if Mikal Bridges or Cam Johnson became available, but I don't think the Nets want to
trade Mikal. Definitely not. Yeah. Unless it's a bigger trade for like a star player like we just discussed.
Yeah, I think they like want to be competitive. So then like the only other guys left are like, would they Donovan Mitchell doesn't seem like a move that Sam Presti would make.
I don't think so.
The big one, the big one. Do they call about Zion?
That's why I think that their big trades will be next offseason. Mm-hmm. Like I think that their big trade will be, let's take a whole year to identify the issues, see who becomes available, and we can make the best bid for Giannis or Zion or Embiid or whoever we want to target a year from now. Because look, they're gonna have to get through the Nuggets and Jokic if they want to win that conference. And there's only a handful of guys that can really give you that chance. Giannis and Embiid being two of them. The other one's on the Lakers, Anthony Davis. He gets injured all the time. And Denver ran through them like no problem. But you're going to need to make some sort of move like that at some point. Zion is the real prize, but I do think that they would be skeptical. I think they'd trade for a Giannis or an Embiid before they trade for Zion, because I think that they know that he doesn't want to be in New Orleans. He definitely isn't going to want to be in Oklahoma City. And they always take that shit into account when they're drafting these guys. Where do these guys want to be? Like, do they want to be in OKC? Because it's different than pretty much any other market in the NBA. Like, it's very small. It's incredibly boring. There's nothing to do there. Like, I don't think it's a destination that players want to play in unless you have some sort of confirmation before. I don't think that they're going to make a trade like that. I have a name for you. And at first you might be like, I don't know. And maybe it is just redundant with the guys that they have now, but just like, what are they trying to build there? My thing is like, I think that we bring up all these guys who are like very skilled and talented.
Yes.
But they don't fit with their like dribble, shoot, pass, defend, everything. A guy that maybe they wouldn't trade for, but is certainly going to be available at the deadline that kind of fits that mold, and you would worry about injuries, is Gordon Hayward.
That's interesting.
Like, you get an extra wing in there. You can just basically get him for probably expirings. You wouldn't even have to give up a first-round pick. Like, you just get him for expirings and like some seconds.
Yeah, or one of your like fake first-round picks. They have a billion of them. Even if they did have to give up a first, it's a skin off their back. If they're turning Lou Dort and Bertans into Gordon,
or even if it was Oladipo and Bertans and filler. You could probably get to the Gordon Hayward number. And dribble, shoot, pass guy who can kind of defend when healthy and definitely aligns with the local politics of Oklahoma City and that region of the country. He might not care about living there.
Robin Hayward's thin blue line flag on her SUV would get so much work in Oklahoma City.
They would love it.
Yeah, they would love it. So he would love he's a gamer, and I feel like there are gaming events, nearby in like Texas and some of these other things. So that could be It could be a huge win for him. Yeah, I kind of honestly I kind of like that.
Yeah, I think that might be a guy that they could be interested in at a certain point this year. But all right, do you have I have to have a burning question for you about the Oklahoma City Thunder, right?
Yes, you do.
Okay, my burning question is, can Chet Holmgren survive at center? Because they don't have a center. I like Chet a lot in the draft. They don't have a ton of bigs on the roster. They don't really have any bigs.
How dare you disrespect Robinson?
Other Jalen Williams.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Robinson Earl.
Yeah.
Probably going to get cut before the season. But yeah. They don't really have any bigs, and they're rolling into the season with Chet as potentially their starting center. Can he survive at center in the NBA?
It's going to be rough. Like I look. I think Chet's going to have really good games. I think there are going to be times like when he's playing Jonas Valanciunas when Chet's going to have like not as good games.
Sure.
You know, like so. Like I think Chet's going to look like a guy who is playing NBA basketball for the first time in his life, you know, like so, and it's probably not going to go great. All bigs struggle on defense. Robert Williams, a defensive player of the year candidate, looked really bad on defense his rookie year, like really bad. A lot of bigs look really bad on defense, even if they've got shot blocking instincts and are these heralded shot blockers coming out of college. It's a totally different thing in the NBA. So I think it's going to be rough for Chet. I don't think that necessarily is indicative of him being a bust. I'm not a huge like Chet guy, to be honest. Like I kind of wanted, oh God, why am I blanking on his name? Jabari. I had Jabari over him in that draft, which is looking terrible right now. So, but I've never been a big Chet believer, but I think he's probably going to struggle. But I also think that's fine for the most part. I also think that, they would probably be wise to invest in like some sort of veteran center who could help them. Honestly, I kind of like them as like sort of an Ayton team if they, if he shook loose, but I guess, but they just need like one center, and there are like a bunch of, bigs in the league. I think it's going to be interesting to see what like centers are out there for them to like trade for and like look for on the contract. Cause I do think they're going to need some depth. It can't just be Chet and other Jalen Williams. Yeah. Like if you want to make the playoffs this year, you've got to have like somebody else. You've got to have like a differently skilled big. Like you've got to have a Steven Adams type of guy, or maybe not even that good, but like a the poor man's Steven Adams that you're bringing into your team.
Yeah, it was funny because they were talking about this exact topic on the Hoop Collective, and Bontemps was like, well, I just don't really think he's going to be able to survive with the size. And McMahon's like, it's not the 80s anymore. You don't have to play against Olajuwon and Ewing and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And Presidente from the Strickland podcast brought up on Twitter that actually you could run into some issues in terms of size when you're playing even against like Mitchell Robinson, who's going to get like 12 offensive rebounds in a game against Chet. Like that's the thing that I'm more worried about with Oklahoma City and Chet than I am about like Jokic and Embiid and the Anthony Davis and whoever. I'm more worried about the guys that are going to physically bully him around for rebounds on the interior, create extra possessions for their team potentially. And that team in itself, they've built around this idea of collective gang rebounding. And I think that's going to work to an extent, but I think there are going to be certain matchups where they're just going to get killed.
There's a lot of really good bigs in the West. Jokic. Yeah. You've got Draymond and Kevon Looney when you play the Warriors. Both those guys are rebound monsters. You've got Sabonis for the Kings. You've got I just had another one. Anthony Davis of the Lakers. Like
exactly.
That's a monster matchup. Probably not DeAndre Ayton, whether he's on the Blazers or the Suns, come later on this year. Like there's just a ton of Cat and Gobert. Like there's a lot of strong, talented bigs in these playoffs. It's hard to be a top 10 center these days.
Yeah.
Like like maybe he'll do work on Walker Kessler a little bit, but like I'm not gonna bet on that. Like, you know, it's guys like that Chet are gonna have a chance again. And there's not that many of those guys.
The advantage of having Chet and what Oklahoma City is building is that they will be able to hopefully expose those guys in other facets of the game. Everyone on Oklahoma City, in theory, can dribble, shoot, and pass that's in the rotation. And if that's the case, you become incredibly hard to guard, like we've seen with the Warriors throughout the years. Now, the Warriors also had the two greatest movement shooters we've ever seen in Steph Curry and Draymond and Klay Thompson, with Draymond Green as the connective piece and a bunch of smart, good players around them. But what they're building is the hope that they can kind of make those bigger guys more irrelevant as you get further into the playoffs, because they make it a more perimeter oriented game where they are just running offense through the high post. They're running offense from outside and everyone can score at multiple levels. And these guys that are maybe killing them on the glass to an extent just aren't able to hang with them in space. And that is the revolution that they see coming with this team. And it could happen, but I think we're a few years away from it happening. And Chet being able to play center would be the real key to that. And I think it's only going to be certain lineups that will work against. Like that certainly won't work against the Nuggets, because Jokic will get 40 rebounds in the game and you know, just absolutely dominate. But then again, who can stop Jokic? It's a valid point. So okay, which teams do we have left? We have Portland and someone else.
Portland and Utah. So let's go to Portland. One, I'm leaving aside the obvious blazing question.
Sure, the blazing question for the Blazers.
I think what I'm really interested to see is what a year 2 Shaedon Sharpe looks like. So what does year 2 Shaedon Sharpe look like? Bro, dude.
I think he's going to be, I mean, if I had to guess, for spacing purposes and because they want to get him on ball reps, they'll probably bring him off the bench. Not that he's a bad spacer, but it's that Simons is the guy that he's competing with for that other spot in the backcourt, and he is an elite spacer. So I think that they're going to want to try to maximize Scoot spacing as much as possible. They'll play those two together a lot, I think, because just the athleticism is going to be crazy. But I think that I think the other piece of it is that Shaedon Sharpe's probably in that 6-man role where he's getting a lot more on ball reps. They're trusting him to create. And I think that a guy that we've compared him to in the past is a J.R. Smith, someone, I can't even remember who came up with that comp, but it was like, I thought it was a really good comp, just like a hyper athletic guy who can work on and off the ball. Is not going to be like a star, but can function on some really good teams. And I think that's the reason why they got Scoot. Like Scoot is the star that they hope can be the guy, and Shaedon will take more of a complementary role where he still gets to run the team from time to time coming off of the bench. And I mean, your guess is just as good as mine as what he'll actually look like. He's going to be super explosive, and he is going to be incredibly hard to stay in front of. Can he fix up a lot of the defensive issues that he had in year 1, a lot of the kind of ball stopper issues that he had in year 1? Those will be the questions that are answered this year. But I think that he's got a ton of potential. He's got potential to just be, he's an explosive athlete who has good touch and has honestly barely played basketball and looked pretty good in his rookie year from time to time. So I don't care what the analytics say. I think he's going to be a solid to good player.
I agree on that. And I think that I just think he's going to be so interesting. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's very rare that we have wings come in who like clearly have a belong factor. You know what I'm saying? And have like he honestly, the other one he kind of reminds me of, and he's a better shooter than him, is that he actually kind of reminds me of Jaylen Brown when Jaylen Brown came out.
Sure.
Where, like, you know, Jaylen was so raw his rookie year, and I hadn't been like really into basketball too much, watching these like really high level, high draft pick guys. I was like, did we fuck up? Is he bad? Like,
does he suck?
Yeah, and I was like very concerned about that. So I was like, what? He like can't. He's a top 3 pick, and he's like barely in our rotation. Like, and I was like, what is this? But
you're like, he can't dribble with his left hand.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, he'll fix that. I'm not worried about that.
This will never come back to bite us.
This will be fine. But like, I think that like a realistic upside for Shaedon. I think J.R. Smith, I think, is a great comp. But I think that, you know, he'll, I think that he could be like, an athletic 3-and-D wing guy who like on the lower end, is like a starter, high level bench player, or on the upper end, he could be like a Jaylen Brown type guy who
Sure.
could be like an all-star and maybe even an all NBA in the right season, So like he's the one that I'm really intrigued by Scoot too, but I think that Scoot's gonna have again the rookie. He'll probably have a pretty rough rookie season, especially being a small guard and like figuring out pace and everything like that. I'm really interested what Shaden Sharp's sophomore year looks like though, because of like I think this is gonna tell us a lot about him and where he's gonna end up this season.
Yeah. But, okay, Kyle, turn the TikTok camera on.
Here we go.
Is Jeremy Grant on the Lakers by January? He always picks the Lakers. It's always the Lakers.
Are you actually asking me about the Lakers specifically, or just him getting traded?
He will get traded, probably.
Yes.
What team trades for Jeremy Grant at the deadline is the real question here.
So Jeremy Grant's power forward.
He is. He can play the 3 though.
He can play the. He's like Tobias though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, he's a better rebounder than Tobias and a better defender. He can play the 3-4.
That makes him a better power forward.
Sure, but he can play both positions. He could guard both positions, which is really what I care about.
Okay, I guess that's true.
He has played 4-5 as well before.
He's also, by the way, his contract. I remember laughing at the Jeremy Grant contract when that came out. It's not that bad. It's $27 million, and it's going to escalate. But like, that's really not hard to come up with like the pieces for that.
I don't like paying non-all-stars, House. I don't like paying non-all-stars $30 million a year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like,
but also the percentage of the cap is just way less than our brains haven't adjusted to the new numbers that are going to be guys you're going to be getting going forward.
Like, is it just going to be like, it really might just be like Rui Hachimura and Jalen Hood-Schifino.
They don't have any other picks, right? Oh yeah, I was going to say maybe if they have a prospect they like.
Yeah, they have one more. I think they have one more, right? They didn't give up one in the thing, but I don't think they're given that. Jeremy Grant on that contract, do you think you need to give up a first-round pick if you're giving up a young guy and Rui? That seems
that's a good point.
That seems about right to me because Rui's like fine, sure. Right? Like,
yeah, he's solid.
Yeah, so like, and I think Rui could kind of, he's sort of on that timeline. Like Rui came in pretty young, right? Like what? Rui's got to be like 24, something like that, right?
Yeah,
he's 25. Close enough. So, like I think that there are some teams that could use him, but it just goes back to the problem of like, I don't know, like wing, he's a forward, not a wing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think if he was wings that can play the 3 are more valuable than forwards that can play the 3, in my opinion. So
I think he can play the 3-4-5. I just don't really think that it's that much of an issue. I don't like he's played the 4-5 for most of his career. I think he would survive fine. Like if he got traded, this is what I was just going to bring up.
If he got traded for OG, would
no, I don't think OG would be someone. I don't think Toronto would do that. But
well, I'm just saying, like fit wise. Specifically, though.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, is he going to be the best 3 in the NBA? No. Yeah. But like, I think he could survive some minutes there. There are just so few 3s. We talk about this all the time. It's like basically a mythical position at this point. But the thing that I would be curious about is if the Dame trade doesn't happen with Phoenix being involved, could there be an Ayton for Grant swap at some point? Because then you could put him at the 3 next to Durant, or you could do smaller lineups with them at the 4-5.
Jock Landale.
Well, Jock Landale's gone. It's like Shemezi Metu, or I mean, I'm just saying you could basically trade their contracts straight up for one another. Portland obviously likes Ayton, and they want. They're gonna.
I like that way better than trading for fucking Yusuf Nurkic.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, yeah, I do like that way better. I was Jeremy Grant's good, like, it's gonna be interesting. My thing with Jeremy Grant is like, how does Jeremy Grant feel about going to a team where he's back in the role that he needs to be in for a team to be a winner, which is him as a 3 or 4? third or fourth option.
Yeah.
He
did not want to do that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why he might have signed that contract is because of he thought he would have a bigger role with the Blazers than most teams.
That's what I'm saying. Like, because then he is the clear number 2 option. But like, if Jeremy Grant's your number 1 or number 2 option, you're not very good. Like, respect to Jeremy Grant for betting on himself with that Detroit contract. Like, that worked out very well for, everybody involved. But again, we saw what Detroit was when Jeremy Grant was their best player. They weren't good.
Right.
So, I don't know. Like, I think that I'm trying to like run through a list of teams that I like maybe might be fits for him. Like, I could see, I don't think that the Kings could probably use him, but then you're like trading Keegan Murray, or something like that.
Yeah,
like he's already your 4. I don't think that's very good.
I just don't think in a market like Sacramento where they don't get guys, they'll not do that.
Yeah, like the Warriors already have Wiggins, you know what I'm saying? Like I guess the Pelicans are the other team that I guess kind of makes some sense, but like I don't know about that one either though, because you do have like Brandon Ingram there still to, like you guess you could just
still hasn't signed a contract extension, by the way, Brandon Ingram.
That's pretty interesting.
He has 2 years left on his deal. This is normally when guys sign their deals. He's one of the other guys you might be able to throw into that conversation. When I was looking at guys for OKC, he came up in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Like speaking of guys who play the 3, some of the only guys who play the 3 in the league.
Yeah.
Like, so that's pretty interesting. I don't know. Like Jeremy Grant, that's interesting. I mean, I think they're gonna, as long as they don't Messiah it, I think they're going to be able to get a pretty good deal for Jeremy Grant because 3s are very important. And that's why OG is
wings in general that can play and shoot, like defend, shoot, rebound. Like he'll be, I don't know. I'm not like, I don't know. We'll see what happens with Jeremy Grant.
How many picks do the Mavericks have left?
Like 2, I think. Not many.
Would you make do they still have Tim Hardaway Jr.? They do, right?
Yeah. I would do that.
Tim Hardaway Jr. and like
if you're just saying fuck it, let's go all in.
Like he'd be a really good fit with that team too. Like Jeremy Grant Williams and like
Kyrie,
Kyrie. That might not offend Jeremy Grant's sensibilities as much because he could get the number 2 guy. Like there could be some times when he's running the offense.
When Kyrie sends out a
Yeah. That's another really interesting one. Like,
sure.
So you know what? There are more landing spots to get. So I agree with you. Yes, he will be traded at some point this year if Dave goes out. So
okay. So Utah Jazz, last team.
Yeah. Okay. So
I have a question for you.
All right, you want to lead? Okay.
What does the Lauri Markkanen trade look like that we call Danny Ainge a bastard for? The bastard Danny Ainge. What does he get away with here? Where he trades Lauri Markkanen, like Lauri has another all-star-ish level season, and it's like January, and then out of nowhere we get a Woj notification. It's like Lauri Markkanen has been traded for, and we're like, how did he get that person or pick or what? What does it look like? Because that's what I'm thinking is that I think that this is the year. If Keontae George comes out and looks awesome and he's like he looked in Summer League and they have the new Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert pairing in Utah and he's like, fuck it, let's go for the rebuild. Who does he get for Lauri at the peak of his value?
I hate to say this. I really do hate to say this. I don't want this to be true. I think he tricks the Charlotte Hornets again. I think he tricks the Charlotte Hornets again and sends Lauri Markkanen for like Gordon Hayward and
future picks, and then they get like top 5 picks.
Yeah, he sends he sends like Lauri Markkanen, Kelly Olynyk, and then like some future package.
You get the Cooper Flag pick in 2 years.
Exactly. It's gonna be something like that. Like I feel like it's got to be
new owner syndrome, Phil.
Yeah, new owner syndrome. Like it's got to be a team that's like kind of dumb a little bit too, and might not might be like a little bit desperate. And that's the one that kind of jumps out to me because like new owners, they're going to be bad. They're going to be like okay, but their record is going to be bad just because of kind of where they are.
Right.
I think that's
really funny.
I think that's my pick. I think that's my pick. Because the other thing is,
gold.
It needs to be a team like that too, because everybody else is going to be waiting for like Giannis. Like all the normal big players are going to be waiting for like Giannis and Embiid. Like the Knicks aren't going to do anything. Like the Heat aren't going to do anything. Like, so I think it's got to be one of these like desolation markets that like never get stars or something like that, making like a desperation move. And I think I think that's the one. Unfortunately, I think it's
There's also a Dallas Bulls.
Yeah,
Chicago Bulls. They trade for Laurie back. Kevin, I'm sorry. This is just that would be really funny.
Laurie marketed for Zach LaVine was
Laurie marketed and filler for Zach LaVine and one future unprotected first that turns into the greatest prospect of the last like 30 years.
Oh man, that's such a bummer. I don't even want to think about that. Oh man. I'm gonna pivot a little bit off of my one that I was gonna say because I was gonna ask you about Colin Sexton and like what the future is for Colin Sexton. But I think we'll obviously like end up on the trades and everything like that. So I'm gonna go somewhere else with this one. What do you think Walker Kessler's season looks like this year?
It's funny because we talk about it with like these bigs. Like sometimes bigs can come in and be super impactful, especially like via impact stats because they protect the rim really well and they get a ton of rebounds. I kind of see Walker Kessler as like, I mean, honestly, probably the closest comp to him is Rudy, after his rookie year. But then again, there have been guys that are not quite that level of like all-star defensive player of the year candidate level centers that are really good analytically and like look really good in their rookie year. I don't know. I just think that he is going to be a really good role player, nice fit center for them. He's quite a few years away from being like, if he ever makes like all defense teams and shit. But
I guess that's more what I was asking. Like, do you see his like season here coming up? Like, are you looking for like guy on a star trajectory, or are you just looking for him to be like
I think he's going to be like a good starter. Like, I think he'll be like. Maybe he'll be like the 6th or 7th best center in the NBA in a few years, but it's going to be like a guy that isn't really considered for like all-star teams, if that makes sense. Like maybe he's at like where DeAndre Ayton or Miles Turner were like a few years ago when we all considered them like, I mean, look, I could be wrong. He could just be like a defensive anchor, absolute beast. But I don't know. We'll see. I was definitely encouraged by his rookie year, and he's still really young. He's like 21 or 22. But I'm skeptical with the centers to kind of overreact to one really good season young.
My final question. Will we fly Parm out for the Keontae George Rookie of the Year season?
Yes.
Him to watch Keontae
We'll do
George.
a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
We'll get Parm out to Utah. He'll be on the TNT broadcast. We'll pull some strings.
I need him being like interviewed by like Taylor Rooks, like in between like Parm, like being Parm, you believed in this man. You called it from miles away. Like, what are you saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like the picture when the interview is really interesting and going along. So they put the game has started again, but it's running next to it. And it's just Parm. We need to make Parm a Utah celebrity, I guess.
I was going to say we'll save for our award ceremony to do this full, like when we do our predictions. We'll have Parm back on because Parm did it last year and it was a lot of fun. But Rookie of the Year odds for, I'm just looking up on that website that we used for this usually. By the way, Vasilij Micic, 35 plus 3,500. I can't believe he even has odds. Let's go. Keontae George on a few different books. He's plus 5,000, plus 2,500, plus 4,000, plus 4,000. Those are really good odds. I mean, the guys ahead of him are Sasha Venskov, Asar Thompson, Vasila Micic, Cam Whitmore, Amen Thompson, Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson, Chet Holmgren, and Victor Wembanyama.
Oh, I forget Victor's. I forget Victor's
Victor
in this
and
class.
Chet.
Yeah, I was gonna
Chet's
say,
the
yeah.
second year guy.
Oh yeah, Chet's in this class too.
Yeah.
Scoot.
Yeah.
That is pretty tough. That there's like
Those
four.
Those are really good odds for a guy that might be like a starter on a decent team, though.
That's true.
We'll see.
That's probably why. Yeah, just something to think about for everyone. And who knows? Wemby might be cheeks. Wemby overrated? Would you? Will the bastard Danny Ainge be able to get Wemby for Walker Kessler and Laurie Marketing at the deadline? Yeah,
they give up on Wemby already by February. This generational hyped prospect.
Well, I mean, he is French. Then again, the Spurs do have
called it.
The Spurs do have a history with. They had Tony Parker and Boris Diaw running around there being French. So
the market inefficiency's over. Not everyone hates Europeans like they used to. So,
but hold on, French are the Europeans who deserve it.
Oh, so, true.
Yeah, you got to remember that. You got to remember that. Rudy Gobert proved this. Yeah,
he started COVID.
Yep. So
we always forget.
Something to think about.
All right, that's a good place to end it. We're not going to quite get to 2 hours, but we are close enough for my taste. That's good.
The Ringer podcast guys are in shambles. I can't believe I didn't get to bring up Verno saying on the mismatch today that Ayton was on the cusp of being an all-star.
Well, was he?
No.
At one point, he's definitely got all-star votes at one point.
But I mean, not anymore.
That was like 2 years ago. Like the first year they had Chris Paul, he probably got all-star votes.
I would have pushed back on that very hard if I were KOC. I do love Vernon though.
Verno's the god.
Verno the god.
Every time I listen to the mismatch, it's always like I forget that Vernon is like some of these guys are not the caricatures that we make them out to be. Like Bill and Zach are pretty normal. Yeah. Verno is 100% his character.
Yeah,
you listen and you're like laughing at the things that we would say as Verno.
Yes,
he actually says them.
Well, and it's so funny because like KOC is like the ultimate like hedger and like trying to be like reasonable.
Sure.
Normal man. Yeah,
he's the take radio guy and the normal man. That's usually the balance.
But then the thing is, all of a sudden, KOC will just say, "Nah, that guy fucking sucks." Like he'll just have like this insane out of the wall like thing. Like it's just.
Oh my god, KOC said that fucking Kelly Oubre should kill himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Christ.
Yeah, what did KOC?
What the hell?
KOC just said fasting was easy. Like, why did that happen? Like.
Why did he wake up and decide to offend 1 billion people?
Yeah, KOC, we're taking you to the Imam. You must
all right.
I would love Muslim KOC might need to be my new screen name. You gotta make it happen.
All right, let's get out of here.
Is that a late edit? Is that a late edit?
No.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
You're insane.
All right. Peace, everyone.
Follow birds.